Hi everyone. So I'm going to have a look at the US dollar index against the major currencies for the week commencing the 20th of January 2020. And what I really want to do here is just highlight by looking at the dollar index here. There's a couple of things where overall it's encountered some very strong resistance at 99, almost made it to 100. But really what I want to highlight here is the slow general curvature of price as we start to turn around. And although we are still technically in an uptrend of higher lows and higher highs, and we still have a bullish candle currently forming for this month, especially when I look at the weekly, there's still this very strong possibility of it starting to shift to a downtrend. So here I want to highlight that if we go back to March 2018, we could see generally the flow of price being generally above these two moving averages. And you'll see that actually as we get towards the top, it starts to dip below the moving averages a lot more. One last kind of push up towards 99, strong rejection there, a double top rejection, or at least a double rejection, and then we can see we've actually gone into a downtrend of lower highs and lower lows. But not just that, price has actually now shifted underneath the moving averages, and the moving averages have reordered. Okay, so there's a very subtle bearish move or bearish kind of behavior here, which is not evident between March, or at least post-March, up until going up until September. So there's definitely a shift, at least on the weekly time frame, to the downside, and of course that'll get broken if we break this previous high. If we hit up above 98, call it 98.50, that'll be a solid break above that high. And now if I look at it on a daily basis, it's looking somewhat bullish. So this is where we are. There's actually an uptrend on the daily, there's a downtrend on the weekly, and there's still technically an uptrend on the monthly. So there's this contradiction, and I said in my video last week that there's this fork in the road for the dollar index, and this is what I'm concerned with. So what I've done is highlighted just off this high over here, this recent swing high, I've highlighted Fibonacci levels, and I'm going to keep an eye on the 618 and the 786 and see if either of these levels hold. And if they don't, and price ends up coming back down and breaking this previous low on the daily, that would imply then that the weekly is then starting to take shape and the US dollar is starting to weaken. So, but having said that, now if I just jump across and have a look at the euro dollar does actually look quite weak, certainly on that daily time frame. And so that is something that I'm going to just keep an eye on. I'll go over here and just switch this up to the monthly, and just pull this back in and just fit that in. Right, so now if I have a look, we do technically have an uptrend on that weekly. But we can also see the daily is starting to head a little bit lower, and in fact the weekly, monthly here is still pulled back into the moving averages, producing a bearish candle there. All right, so it could be preparing to head lower. So we really do have this potential for the US dollar to weaken looking at the weekly, but in every other respect we also see it's still looking relatively strong. If I then switch over and have a look at cable is actually still has really managed to change its structure on that monthly time frame. If I just enlarge this chart and we have a look at this, we can see that very strong support there, close to 1.2, and we've broken this previous high. So all of this implies that it's stronger rather than weaker, but I am also just highlighting here we've got that strong weekly uptrend, but I'm just highlighting this current daily bearish candle, and so just showing that the potential for this week, at the very least, there is that potential for a strong US dollar. Aussie dollar on the daily also looking quite bearish. Kiwi dollar on the daily also producing a swing high here, so potentially heading lower, and actually it still has that strong downtrend on the monthly time frame, still heading lower, still producing a bearish candle there in the moving averages, and could still head lower. But so that's why there's just very much a strong conflict. But then if we then compare it to, say, dollar yen, we can see dollar yen actually in this recent price action is looking nice and bullish. It's broken through strong resistance on the weekly in that strong uptrend. All right, so dollar yen does tend to buck the trend. It does its own thing, and so I'm not really going to take that as enough evidence yet. But also if I look at dollar Swissy, that's also looking relatively bearish. It's currently just retracing in on the daily back into these previous lows. So that in isolation actually looking nice and bearish. Dollar CAD just consolidating for the last week, so not giving too much of a clue there, but is definitely in a downtrend on this weekly time frame, and coming back into retracing back up into these previous lows, and it's a downtrend on that monthly of lower highs, lower lows. So we are seeing weaker dollar in some of the charts, stronger dollar in some of the others, and that conflict on its own, actually on its own basket. So that's something I'm just going to trade individually. I'll trade with caution. I just need my mind to keep to be aware that there is this fork in the road and that actually things can change. And again, I was hoping for clarity last week. Looks like I'm going to have to wait until the end of this week to get a sense of that. And the only other thing that's caught my eye that's very interesting to me are the Swissy pairs, CHF. They're all looking incredibly bearish. It's really nice. Euro Swissy on my watch list, waiting for a nice retracement on the daily. Let's go and have a look at Pound Swissy. Obviously GBP not being as bearish, but there's also again a very nice downtrend, nice breakthrough of support on the daily pullback, nice bearish candle break the low, that being a follow through, that also looking nice and bearish. Let's have a look at say Aussie Swissy, Kiwi Swissy. So this is also looking nice and weak. Kiwi Swissy looking nice and weak as well. Same thing again, pulling back into the previous lows. Nice little bearish candle setting up to head a little bit low. There's that uptrend on the weekly, but a downtrend on the monthly. So CHF charts looking very appealing to me in terms of currencies.